This is the story of one building that witnessed the full arc of Hitler's life, from a starving young man on its doorstep to a dictator sleeping inside its walls. The Hotel Imperial in Vienna holds one of the most loaded addresses in 20th century Europe, and almost nobody talks about it. Construction began in 1863, when Duke Philip of Württemberg and his wife Archduchess Maria Theresa commissioned a private city palace on Vienna's grandest boulevard, the Ringstraße. Architect Arnold Zanetti designed it in the Italian Neo-Renaissance style, with Carrara marble pillars, silk-lined walls, crystal chandeliers, and 16 horse stalls that were eventually gutted and converted into a dining room. The Duke and his wife barely used the place, selling up around 1871, and that is when architect Wilhelm Gross converted the palace into a hotel, narrowing the carriage entrance into a reception hall and installing a lift and marble bathrooms throughout. On April 28, 1873, Emperor Franz Joseph I and Empress Elizabeth attended the grand opening, 3 days before the Vienna World's Fair. Richard Wagner took 7 rooms for 2 months in 1875. Charlie Chaplin passed through in 1931. Sarah Bernhardt, Thomas Mann, Alfred Hitchcock, Walt Disney, Frank Sinatra, all of them came through those doors. Today, the building operates as a 5-star luxury collection hotel under Marriott management, with 138 rooms and 59 suites. It was sold in 2016 for $78.8 million to the Al Habtoor Group of the United Arab Emirates. None of that, though, is why we're here. The young man on the streets. Adolf Hitler moved to Vienna in the autumn of 1907 at age 18, and the city rejected him almost immediately. The Vienna Academy of Fine Arts turned him down. Examiners noted few heads, and that his test drawing was unsatisfactory, and they told him his talent leaned toward architecture rather than painting. His mother, Clara, died that December. He returned to Vienna in early 1908 and tried the academy again. This time his drawings were so poor he did not make it to the formal entrance exam. By late summer 1909, the money was gone, and around September, Hitler vanished from the documentary record entirely. Ian Kershaw's biography confirms there is no registered address, no paper trail, nothing for 3 months. Those missing months were spent sleeping on park benches, in homeless shelters, under bridges, at train stations, without a coat. He was homeless. The man who knew him best during this period was Reinhold Hannisch, who later published a memoir called I Was Hitler's Buddy in the New Republic in April 1939. Hannisch described Hitler as having long, unkempt hair spilling over the collar of the too large coat, topped with a greasy black derby hat. He was blue and frostbitten in winter, and his most prized possession was an oversized black overcoat given to him by a Hungarian Jewish old clothes dealer named Neumann. On February 9, 1910, Hitler moved into the Meinerheim, a men's dormitory at Meldemannstraße 27 in the Brigittenau district, opened in 1905 with electric lighting, steam heating, a library, and meals, all for 10 kronen a month. He stayed there until May 24, 1913, over 3 years in the same building. To earn money, Hitler painted watercolor copies of Viennese landmarks, while Hannisch sold them in taverns for 2 to 5 kronen each. Casual labor filled the gaps: luggage carrying, carpet beating, and during winter, snow shoveling. Hannisch writes that Hitler shoveled snow a few times, usually arriving late because he was very weak and had sore feet, and then adds the line that cuts deepest: I never have seen him do any hard work. Now, here is where honesty is needed. The claim that this snow shoveling happened specifically outside the Hotel Imperial is one of the most repeated details in the Hitler Vienna legend, and the evidence for it is genuinely thin. Anisch's memoir never mentions the Hotel Imperial. Mein Kampf does not either. The earliest traceable version with any qualifier comes from Thomas Ware's The Setting of the Pearl, published by Oxford University Press in 2005, which attributes the connection to one account and hedges accordingly. What the evidence confirms is that Hitler shoveled snow on Vienna's streets in winter 1909 to 1910. The Hotel Imperial stood right there on the Ring Boulevard he described as an enchantment from the 1001 Nights, and 28 years later he stood on that hotel's balcony as the ruler of Germany and Austria both. German troops crossed into Austria on March 12, 1938, and met no resistance. Soldiers were greeted with flowers, which gave the operation its name, the Blumenkrieg, the War of Flowers. Hitler drove by motorcade into the country of his birth, delivered a speech in Linz to roughly 80,000 people with witnesses reporting tears on his face. And on the evening of March 14, his motorcade entered Vienna, passing Schönbrunn Palace and driving the length of Maria-Hilfer-Straße before arriving at the Hotel Imperial on Kärntner Ring. Around 7 that evening, loudspeakers told the gathered crowd he was too tired to appear, but the crowd persisted, and he emerged on the second-floor balcony alongside Joseph Goebbels and separately with Heinrich Himmler. His words that night, "German compatriots, you all have a share in this vow, that whatever happens, the German Reich as it stands today shall never be broken by anyone again." The following morning, he delivered the more famous Heldenplatz speech from the Hofburg Palace to a crowd between 200,000 and 250,000 people, declared the entry of his homeland into the Reich, and departed Vienna that same day, having spent approximately 24 hours in the city. The Hotel Imperial was now his permanent Vienna headquarters. General Manager Stefan Planck was quietly anti-Nazi, and when it came to assigning Hitler a room, Planck maneuvered carefully. Hitler slept in apartment 103 on the first floor, a smaller room without a main road view, while using the royal suite second-floor balcony for his public appearance. Pro-Nazi employees denounced Planck as a friend of Jews and declared him unfit to run the Hotel Imperial, the new headquarters of the Führer when in Vienna. He was imprisoned and then released after 1 week when no evidence materialized. Planck was replaced by Richard Postel, who ran the hotel from 1939 through 1945. Below the building, a Führer bunker was constructed beneath Dumbachstrasse, connected to the hotel by a passageway lined with beige wall tiles that still exists today. Among the shareholders of Imperial Hotels Austria, AG before the Anschluss, was Samuel Schallinger, born in 1867 in Brno, Moravia, a major co-owner of the hotel where Hitler now held court. On March 21, 1938, 8 days after the Anschluss, Schallinger's name, along with those of Leopold Langer, Paul Abel, and Heinrich Lovinger, were struck from the commercial register and replaced with Aryan members. Schallinger was forced to hand over his fortune unconditionally to the German people. He and his entire family were deported to Theresienstadt concentration camp, where they all died. Schallinger himself died there on January 11, 1943, and no restitution ever followed. After the war, Soviet forces reached Vienna in April 1945 and claimed the Hotel Imperial as their headquarters, while the British took the Hotel Sacher and the Americans took the Hotel Bristol. Marshal Ivan Konev, commander of Soviet forces, convened the first Allied commanders' meeting in Vienna at that address, and Konev is credited with ensuring the building survived the 10-year occupation intact. Stefan Planck, reinstated as general manager by Soviet forces in May 1945, arranged for between 120 and 150 Persian rugs to be moved to a nearby bank vault before the Soviets could take them, and when the occupation ended, they came back undamaged. Soviet graffiti scratched into a mezzanine staircase panel still exists in the building today. On September 18, 1955, the same day Allied forces left Vienna, the hotel passed back to Austrian hands, underwent extensive renovations through 1958, and reopened as Austria's premier state guest hotel. The closing of the circle, Simon Wiesenthal turned 90 in 1998 and chose to celebrate at the Hotel Imperial, a choice that was entirely deliberate. The most famous Nazi hunter in history, a Holocaust survivor who had spent decades tracking former Nazis through the Austrian justice system, his reasoning was precise. He said, "During the Third Reich, it would have been unthinkable for a Jew to be seen at the Imperial Hotel. I want the record of this hotel to affirm that Simon Wiesenthal celebrated his 90th birthday here with a kosher dinner." The dinner happened. A band played the Yiddish song, "Bells, mein stille Bells," and Wiesenthal looked up at the chandeliers of the hotel where Hitler and Himmler had both maintained permanent suites, and said, "You see, even the chandeliers are shaking, because this is the first time they have ever heard such music here." Let the record read that Hitler is no longer here. But even in the Imperial Hotel, Jews are still alive and still singing. The renovation from 2013 to 2014 installed a Path of History gallery documenting the full record inside the building itself. The Soviet graffiti remains on the staircase. The bunker still runs beneath Ringstraße. The snow-shoveling story may or may not be precisely true, but what is documented is that a young man who knew this building from the outside, who had painted postcards of its boulevard to survive, came back to it with an army at his back and stood on its balcony before a crowd of thousands. And the last significant act in the hotel's dark chapter was not that moment. It was Simon Wiesenthal, 90 years old, at a kosher dinner in a room whose chandeliers had never heard Yiddish music until that night. That is the story of the Hotel Imperial in Vienna.